Good morning, Bodhisattvas.
Good morning.
Good morning, Bodhisattvas in far-flung places and near places, and we're completely separate and we're completely together. We're going to begin, we've done it before in the Sangha, we're going to begin studying the Genjo Koan, which is Dogen's, probably Dogen's most famous fascicle. And I have this idea, we'll see how it works. Because the purpose, the meaning in all of this, and I think Dogen's too, any true human beings, is, so what's all this got to do with anything? What are you doing just sitting around? Studying sutras, ringing bells. The world is burning. And if we don't know the ground, groundless ground, all the way through ground, heart of it, heart, mind, we're just going to keep making the same old mistakes. And we're going to do it anyway, you know? That's how we learn. But we can all wake up, and we can all wake up together, and we can help each other. And Dogen's words can be alive. The Genjo Koan is so beautiful and so full of nature images and just the penetrating truth of Dogen's deepest teachings. And I also thought, this is the part we'll see how it works, is I want to be sure we make it relevant. I want to start that today. I was thinking, I want to look for poetry from people of color and indigenous people, and language, who use language maybe different, well, for sure different than what Dogen used, and different than the language we might use. But I also think that it is people of color across time and space who have lived in the midst of suffering in a way that maybe everybody knows suffering. But to bring forward the wisdom and the resilience and the joy and the beauty and the love and the suffering. Maybe it'll help us. Maybe it'll help us be present and not turn away. And maybe it will help Dogen's words come alive in this time for us on many different levels. So that's where, because Genjo Koan really is about living the Bodhisattva vows. How do we live in this very particular world, in these very particular bodies, in this very particular karma? These white bodies, because, well, most of us, if not all of us, are here in this Sangha, white identified, and connected across time and space and to timeless time and deepest and unfathomable love and awakeness. And when we can do that, we do. This is a practice of transformation. We transform this very moment into an alive moment. And it touches everywhere. I do know that. I do know that. And I think you do too. Even if you don't know it with your minds, you know it with your bodies. So I'm going to spend, we'll see, who knows if I'll get out of Joey Harjo today, but I'm hoping I'm also going to get into Dogen. Conflict Resolution for Holy Beings. It's a wonderful book of poetry. Joey Harjo was the Poet Laureate of the United States. A new person was just designated this week. the dedication of this. Bless the poets, the workers for justice, the dancers of ceremony, the singers of heartache, the visionaries, all makers and carriers of fresh meaning. We will all make it through. We will all make it through. Despite politics and wars, despite failures and misunderstandings, there is only love. Hey Dogen. No, that's Joy Harjo. So Buddhism, Dogen, Soto Zen, Mahayana Zen, always is rooted in the Four Noble Truths. The brilliance of Shakyamuni Buddha, and Buddhas across time and space, but Shakyamuni Buddha, there is suffering. There is suffering in this world. Not that the world is suffering, but there is suffering. We know it, children know it, everybody knows it. So let's not turn away, let's start there. I thought, got a couple of poems here. This one is called Rabbit is Up to Tricks. In a world long before this one, there was enough for everyone. I think Buddhism would say, and I believe Joy Harjo and the tradition, it's simultaneous. There is enough for everyone. There is enough for everyone. And our job is to bring it into manifestation. But old Rabbit was up to tricks, is up to tricks. In a world long before this one, there was enough for everyone until somebody got out of line. We heard it was Rabbit. Fooling around with clay in the wind. Everybody was tired of his tricks and no one would play with him, and he was lonely in the world. So Rabbit thought to make a person. Uh-oh. And when he blew into the mouth of that crude figure to see what would happen, the clay man person stood up. And Rabbit showed the clay man how to steal a chicken. Ha! And the clay man obeyed. We should all know we have rabbits inside of ourselves, breathing into our mouths and our hearts and our minds, saying, hey, how you doing? You want to have some fun? Okay, Rabbit showed him how to steal corn. The clay man obeyed. Then he showed him how to steal someone else's wife, and clay man obeyed. And the rabbit felt important and powerful. Human beings like this. The clay man felt important and powerful. And once that clay man started, he could not stop. Be careful. Karma, our karmic life. Pay attention. Once he took that chicken, he wanted all the chickens. And once he took that corn, he wanted all the corn. And once he took that wife, he wanted all the wives. He was insatiable. Then he had a taste of gold, and he wanted all the gold. And then it was land and anything else he saw, and his wanting only made him want more. Soon it was countries, and then it was trade. The wanting infected the earth. We lost track of the purpose and reason for life. We began to forget our songs, and we forgot our stories. We could no longer see or hear our ancestors, or talk with each other across the kitchen table. Isn't that real these days? How much families can't sit and talk across the kitchen table. Forests were being mowed down all over the world, and Rabbit had no place to play. Rabbit's tricks had backfired. Rabbit tried to call the clay man back, but when the clay man wouldn't listen, Rabbit realized he'd made a clay man with no ears. Zazen body. Sit down. Whole body, hands, eyes, ears. Study this rabbit self. For yourself. For all beings. Don't get all twisted up in it. Just study it. thoughts, whoa, where did I just go? Come back. Because the only way you're going to be able to listen to the old world and to transform the world that is already in existence is deep listening with the entire body and the heart and the breath. That's what we do. This is our particular ritual. We help each other stay and come back. Deep listening, deep seeing. Noticing when and how we turn away, how much we like rabbit. And little by little, we start to come alive again, together. Here's another poem. Second noble truth. There is an end to suffering. Once the world was perfect. Once the world was perfect and we were happy in that world. And then we took it for granted. Discontent began small rumble in the earthly mind. Then doubt pushed through with its spiked head. And once doubt ruptured the web, all manner of demon thoughts jumped through. You could study them today, what's jumping through. Whoa! I thought that was somebody else out there thinking those thoughts, and my goodness, it's right here in this my own little, it just went through. I could feel it in my body. Aversion, greed, hate, discontent. It's not wrong or bad. Genjo Koan, Dogen's so wonderful, he's going to tell you the Buddhas aren't not deluded. They just know they're deluded. This is so important. This is so different. Oh, delusion. Take a breath. Come back. We destroyed the world we had been given for inspiration, for life. Each stone of jealousy, each stone of fear, greed, envy, and hatred put out the light. No one was without a stone in his or her hand. No one. There we were, right back where we had started. We were bumping into each other in the dark. And now we had no place to live since we didn't know how to live with each other. Take a breath right there. Grief is part of this, you know. Then one of the stumbling ones took pity on another and shared a blanket. A spark of kindness made a light, and the light made an opening in the darkness, and everyone worked together to make a ladder. A Wind Clan person climbed out first into the next world, and then the other clans and the children of those clans and their children, all the way through time. All the way through time. Deep time, timeless time. It's happening. It's always been happening. And now it's our responsibility to right now, this morning light, to you. I said this thought, when you sit zazen, we're all just little candles sitting not burning, well, we are burning our karma in a certain kind of way, but enlightenment is just being the light, right in the midst of the dark. Okay. Path. Four Noble Truths. Once you accept all this, or become fearless enough to not keep turning away, how do we live? Ancestors. We have ancestors who passed us these forms, passed many forms, many ways. Dogen is our ancestor, these forms, bowing, chanting. It says here, Joy Harjo, we all have helpers in seen and unseen realms. Give them something to do. Welcome them in. Listen, clay people, they're right here. And they include you. Otherwise, they will grow inattentive with boredom. I think bodhisattvas, I always have this feeling when we do ordination ceremonies is you call in all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to come and help. And I always have the feeling they're so happy. It's like maybe they're just sitting around going, and then they go, "Wow, these human beings are serious. Call them in. They can clean junk from your mind. Find the opening note for the chorus of a song. Or give a grandchild a safe path through the dark. They will not give you winning numbers at the casino, wash your dishes, or take out an enemy. Thank them and feed them once in a while." How we feed them here: incense, light, flowers, bowing, chanting. In your own heart, days like today, makes the whole world happy. Even though sometimes it just feels like my knee hurts and this is really dumb and I could be outside doing a million different things. But you do know. And there is something beautiful when we join together this way. Okay, one last one. This is for this time. This morning, I pray for my enemies. And whom do I call my enemy? An enemy must be worthy of engagement. I turn in the direction of the sun and keep walking. It's the heart that asks the questions, not my furious mind. It's the heart that asks the questions, not my furious mind. Your mind is furious? Acknowledge it's furious. Study it. Take a breath. Drop down. Here. The heart is the smaller cousin of the sun. It sees and knows everything. It hears the gnashing even as it hears the blessing. Isn't that great? It hears the gnashing even as it hears the blessing. The door to the mind should only open from the heart. Zazen, you sit with your head on the body, on the earth touching the earth, the energy coming up through the belly, the heart, all the way through, connected to the heavens, connected to space and time and the whole world. Heart, right here. Not all by itself being all emotional and it's fine, emotions are important. But we're talking about Heart Sutra mind, deep heart. What is that? The door to the mind should only open from the heart. An enemy who gets in risks the danger of becoming a friend. That's why I want to do this to the degree I'm able, and you can send poems too, is Joy Harjo and Native American Indigenous peoples know about suffering. So when I read her poetry, it sings the truth. It's like, don't turn away. And there's joy and love and inviting enemies into your heart. This isn't intellectual, this is practice. So, Genjo Koan. Genjo. Gen is to actualize the potential that is quickening alive in everything. It isn't something. It's just alive. And it comes into form each moment. And then the koan is the living of it. Is how do we love it? How do we live it? Koan is a public document in China. It was a legal document. And I looked it up this morning, and Shohaku said one way to think about it is to equalize what is unfair or uneven. It's like everything's coming into manifestation. Everything is equal. It's not a thing. It's appearing, disappearing. But there's also how do we live it so that everything has its own place. Everything, which it already has, and shouldn't have to fight for it. But we do this in our own hearts and minds, right? I like you, I don't like you. Oh, that was good, that was bad. I mean, please, study the self. We're getting to that in a minute. This is Dogen's most favorite phrase, most known phrase. Buddhas know they're deluded. Like, oh, there we are again. Genjo Koan is to embody or actualize or express the deepest truth of being alive. How do we do that in our everyday activity, moment after moment? Everything is bodhisattva practice. What a bodhisattva knows is that our life is not just our own. This life is all lives, beyond anything we can imagine or grasp. Wonder, mystery, boundless. And it's particular. We're not going to try to make Marilyn into Constance or Constance into Marilyn. We're going to bow to them and love them and help each other wake up together to be. I was reading Resmaa Menaken's new book about racism. And I liked one of the things he said is that something like the whole point of all of it is that no matter what the situation is, no matter what happens, your best self will always come forward. That's what you're practicing to do. That's a bodhisattva. The goodness in you will come forward. And when it doesn't, then pay attention and take the backward step. See what happens next. So Genjo Koan, famous fascicle by Dogen, founder of our lineage, Eihei Dogen. He was born in 1200 in Kyoto, which was then called Japan, which was in the capital of Japan, excuse me. His question, burning question. We all have burning questions. If the world and life is so beautiful and perfect, kind of Joy Harjo, when the world was perfect, we're told it is perfect, interconnected. Its basic nature is goodness, kindness, love. Why do we keep experiencing and creating suffering and feel so alone and deluded in it? Pretty good question, huh? Did it ever occur to you? That's why we're here today. So Dogen, he took it to China, and he went to many, many teachers. Well, what teachers in Japan told him to go to China. He went to China. And when he returned, he found teachers that he trusted. He vowed to help people learn what he had learned, and the way he had learned it was through Zazen, the practice of Zazen. In the fall of 1233, he wrote the Genjo Koan for lay people. It wasn't written for monastics. It was written for lay people. How do we live in this world? And then he rewrote it a year before his death. So you can tell this question and this beautiful language, which I'm going to share in a minute, was with him his whole life. And I hope this poetry and these questions and Dogen's beautiful language begins to permeate more, whether you know it or not, is that it just begins to permeate more and more deeply your life. Maybe later today something will happen and you'll say, oh, that's Rabbit. There you are, Rabbit. So here's the most famous phrase from the Genjo Koan, which is really a description of Zazen and Zazen living. You don't just sit zazen on a cushion and go, well, that was nice, now I'll go do something else. This is, how do you live? Here's Dogen's question and deepest offering and sharing. To study the way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to be intimate with all things. When intimate with all things, your body and mind, as well as the bodies and minds of others, drop away, and this no trace continues endlessly. Study the self. Not as an object of study, as I think I'll put myself, Chris, out here and I'll study her, which I was a psychotherapist. I think there is a very important way to study this particular self. But I think, like anything, you can just get in loops of, you're just going to spiff this self up, and I just like to get out of my own suffering. Study the self is you use this self to study it all the way through so you understand what it is to have a self. Yikes. And then more and more, it's not your particular fault, and it's not your crazy family. I mean, we all have to take responsibility, please. But you just realize, oh, this is what it is to have a human body. We got born and we're going to die. And in between, greed, hate, delusion, all of it. How can I wake up in it? Karmic life is to be twisted and tangled and thrown around. The dharmic life is, oh, hello, old friend. Take a breath for the sake of all beings. So it's not a self out there, it's entering deeply. That's what we're doing today. Sit down, stand up, breathe, bells. Let it touch you all the way through. Give your life fully, full wholeheartedness. This is just a place to practice so you can go out and do it in the grocery store so that the roar of traffic becomes just like, oh, I bow to the sounds and the smells and the likes and the dislikes of the world. Not like you don't like it or don't have pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. It's not like you don't try to do something when there's something wrong. But if you don't know it from the ground of here I am, eyes, ears, heart open, it's just going to be reactivity. That's all. So, it's described the way a baby bird studies learning to fly with its parents. And Zazen is like a parent. Buddha passed it to us, Dogen passed it to us, the ancestors passed it to us. Just study it, and study yourself, and study the self. And know that the person next to you, and next to you, and next to you, and people sitting right now all over the world in Zazen or whatever they're doing as religious practices to wake up, is everybody's dealing with the same stuff. It just looks, it's got this or that description. And notice how we carry the self forward. To study the self, you notice how you carry the self forward. Or 100,000,000 stories, right? We capture it with our minds, our abilities, our willpower, our effort. We try to put everything under our control. And we wake up more and more to our habits and our patterns, our self-centered reactions, how we push things away and pull things forward without judgment. That's the practice. Just more and more forget the self. The more, it's not forget it in like become unconscious. It's like, well, Dogen says, is myriad things come forward. The whole world comes forward. And there's no gap. There's no out there. It's just call and response forever. That's all. Just this, just this, just this. deep ground. It's really different than karmic activity. It's bodhisattva activity. Is I want to be here. And you get tastes of it. It's like today, for the rest of today, for the rest of this period. Dogen says, drop body and mind. Chatting mind. Oh, there you are. Take a breath and let it go and come back. Body, restless body, angry body, enraged body, delighted body. Just be with it. Don't run away with it. Just come close with it. Let go of it over and over. And then Dogen says, and there's many different ways that he says it. He says it's the way it's been translated. The more this happens, you are intimate with all things. I love that one. It's like intimate. It's like birdsong. Silence. Or the 10,000 things come forward to meet you. The whole world, all the time. Like, hi! Sorry, I'm busy. I'm really thinking about something over here. It's today, just let it go. Let yourself be touched. No inside, no outside. There's feelings inside. There's things happening outside. But just be so intimate with it that you don't even know who you are or what anything is anymore. But you're completely here and completely grounded. Then you are actualized by the myriad things. Everything wakes you up. And you know you're not a separate self anymore. That this self that experiences itself as separate and needs to act in the world is just the self. And its nature is to be self-centered. And that we lose sight of connections. And it causes problems and suffering for ourselves and for everybody else. And the suffering is the motivating force to wake up. It's like, oh, that's the good news in this very hard time. It's hard to go to sleep these days. But if you get lost in it, study the karmic pattern of getting lost in it. And come back. For yourself and for everybody. If you want to go over it and do a spiritual bypass, that doesn't work either. It's like everything's fine. No, it's not fine. And everything is fine. That's what happens is it's both, all, none of the above, all of the above. The desire to wake up gives us energy to be more awake and aware. There's no fixed self that owns the body and mind. There is only love. I know that. You know that. It's just we all feel like we've been kicked out of paradise, right? How do you get back? Well, it's right here. Here's Joy Harjo. My friend Sarita went visiting an ill friend. She stayed with him for a few days, sharing food stories to make peace with their unfinished business. One afternoon, while he slept, she drove to the post office. She found a parking space in a lot down the street. She passed a blind man who was tapping the earth with his cane as she walked up the steps of the post office. When she came out, she walked around the parking lot looking for his car, but it wasn't there. She returned to the post office, where stood the blind man. He was looking for her. He asked her how he could help her. When she told him her problem, he responded, "Take my arm." The blind man led her directly to her car. He told her, "See with your heart and not with your eyes. See with your heart and not with your eyes." And then he disappeared. So today, study the self. Forget the self. Let everything come forward. See with your heart. Here, whole body, heart, mind, eyes. We so much project out there with our eyes. Bring them back. Here, please take my arm. Take the arm with all beings, with the sun and the roses and the bird song and the chairs and whatever's in your home and wherever you are. Do this for yourself, for the people that you love, for the people that you hate, or at least have some degree of disdain or resentment or whatever about. Let's do this today, but let's just stay really close without any ideas about it. This is Genjo Koaning. This is conflict resolution for holy beings. Let's live it and we'll help each other remember over and over. Okay. There's nothing to do, and if you're paying attention, you won't get bored. And if you get bored, that's okay too. Let's do the after lecture chant, and we'll do 3 full bows, and then we'll put the chairs back.